That's really only going to come through for me. I don't know why I had to do that. So. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I'm your host, Perry. With me this week is Eric, the Whiskey Mutant Smith, and the one...
Tim Bip.
Thank God he cut out.
So much of that cut out.
Thank God.
Oh, man.
But it's okay. It's good for the world.
It's okay. Yeah, that was
it's not
wonderful.
enough when I do it.
Shit. As you can tell, we also have a third member joining us this week, all the way from Chicago. It is Mr. Matt Rehwold. Matt, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, not too much. I'm just here. It's a little after 11 a.m. here in the Midwest, ready to have some whiskey. Start my weekend right with you two fellers.
There you go.
Feeling good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you might know Matt from a few different realms, maybe most notably as Aiden English in the WWE. I can't remember. When was the last year that you wrestled with the WE?
So, wrestled, because I did about a year and a half, almost 2 years of commentary right before I left. So, 2020 was when I left. So, I was there for 8 years.
Gotcha.
Mostly wrestling.
Yeah. Awesome. So, Matt also is now known as Wrestling with Whiskey. He's got his own podcast. He's got his own Twitch channel as well. Playing video games, man. We're gonna get into some video game talk at some point, I'm sure as well. But we just got a very well-rounded Renaissance man of a guest this week, I would say. So
yeah, I like to wear. I like to wear many hats. Jack of all trades, master of nothing for sure. I am mastered nothing in my life other than being a total jackass. But you guys watch, this show, so you should be okay with that already.
Hey, there you go.
See, zingers. That's what I'm a master of. The good old fashioned zinger.
I'm gonna just take it in stride because I don't have the energy to do otherwise. I don't think that I can argue with you right now. Just
come on, bring it back.
Well, it's the COVID brain. That's what I'm shocking.
Yes.
So for anybody who doesn't know, my wife and I tested positive last week as of this episode coming out. So by the time this episode actually drops, we hopefully are pretty much completely on the mend, completely healed and whatnot. But it's not been too bad for me. Unfortunately, Lucy's had a little bit of a rough go at it. But overall, I just hate that Eric and I can't see each other this week.
I know. I miss you. It's weird. It's weird seeing you through the screen, I guess.
Yeah.
Especially
since it's a screen.
Yeah,
very good.
It is a screen.
Were you really looking for the word there for a moment?
Yes, I was. Okay.
He actually looks through the camera most of the time and is able to see me. So
yeah,
he had to adjust there.
It's this whole thing. Maybe I'm a little nervous right now because, you, Matt, are the first person that had me on a podcast / show.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's coming back around now. Now you're in my world.
Well, I'm not nervous at all. I thought I'd let you know that.
I'm not nervous.
That was a power move right there.
No,
the only one I got. Trust me.
I've been thinking about this recently. What do you guys consider the ultimate power move? Just establishing dominance.
Oh, that okay.
Not wrestling.
Just
what is the thing that you do and somebody's like, I should not mess with that guy?
Pee on their shoes. You just pee on them.
See, I think I totally get it, but you're bored. This argument can border on that crazy. Where it's
I know.
Which is powerful. Which crazy can be a powerful thing, but then in some people's mind you can switch he needs help.
Yeah,
this poor senile.
That's what would happen.
30-something. So that's a good question. You got to be careful with giving me these hypotheticals. I will go on for an hour to be well, it could be this, but if you think about it this way, you think about it that way. I don't know. For me, I think it's always been. It's kind of a cliche, But I think there's the most power in walking away from something. You know, whether
that's very true. Yeah,
leaving the room, cutting off communication, whatever this, and it kind of because it covers all situations. And I think sometimes you might just be written off as an asshole, but like I think in a lot of ways, like people are, wait, what did I do? They start going, what did I do? What are they upset? What's going on? They start thinking, now they're thinking all about you. They're thinking about your reaction. Why did you do that? Yeah. Did something come up? Are you reacting about something? Whether it's a business meeting, a text, a phone call, or whatever, you make people wonder, and it's all the attention is on you. So I don't know. For me, the biggest power move is sometimes it's not a good idea, but is to pull out, walk away, leave the situation. You know, especially without warning, you get a lot of people just thinking and wondering why.
You ever do that in a match? You just you just turned around, walked out.
Nah, never mind.
Screw it. I mean, I did. I guess, but only in the sense of the 1980s. Walk down the aisle until the baby face comes running at you, grabs you by the back of the neck, and for some reason, I run with you for 50 feet and let you throw me back into the ring and don't fight you any of the time. Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Well, my thought was eating while on the toilet.
What kind of show did I agree to come on?
I don't know.
I thought you guys would be like better than me. And you know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing.
This guy brought me on the show. You should have known from the start, like what you were getting into.
The other thing too,
we're going blue. That's fine.
I was in some ways better for a while, and then I did invite Eric onto the show, and he lowered me to the level of thinking the ultimate power move is somebody eating while they're on the toilet. So
that's what I've done to this show.
Okay, no, but I want to hear it. What's your rationale?
Okay, so like two things. One, the fact that the sanitary precautions have just been totally thrown out the window, and you just say, I'm a man of my own making, is one. And the other thing too, you're basically like inviting the whole process to occur in one go, right? So it's all going in.
Who's in there with you? Who's in there with you while this is happening?
But it's not that they are seeing you do it. It's the fact that they see you go in and come out from having
like you walk in with a bag of chips.
Exactly. And you leave. And
you crumble the bag up and you hit them in the face with it as you walk by. Okay.
So it's
yeah,
more
I
of a
mess with you after that.
It's also more of a self-empowerment move.
Kind of, yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not doing this. This is not performative. It's not for an audience.
Exactly.
We don't need everybody else to know, but I know that I'm being a boss MFer right now on the can while opening this can.
It's all about
and literally eating it.
Yeah. It's about the confidence.
Yes.
On your resume, you've got what are your strongest and weakest attributes?
At least once a week, I eat a meal, one of my meals on the toilet.
It's actually just so I can, regain some sense of control in my life. You've
already made me feel some sort of way the next time I come over to record. If you have food already, I'm going to be a little intimidated.
But here's the thing. It's not something I do, but just the thought of it is like, that would be a true power move.
So you're not a powerful person then? Is that what you're telling us? You haven't done it?
I'm a bit of a pushover.
So here,
but I have done it before. I have done it before, though. I will say,
Eric, then here next time you go over to his house, you go and eat something in his bathroom. That's the real power. Now we're doing it. Now he knows it's going on. That is, other people do see it, and you're doing it with your own confidence. So there you go. Play him at his own game.
Better be ready.
Look. I've come at this point
Perry's
to
in quarantine for 5 more weeks. He's like, you're not coming over to my house.
No, yeah, we actually have police tape up around the house. So sorry about you, but we've kind of jumped right into this without saying. If you guys want to check us out on social media, you can do so at My Bourbon Pod and at Whiskey Mutant and you're at Drama King Matt and at Wrestling with Whiskey.
Yeah, pretty much wherever. If you look up either one of those names, you will find my bald face.
And if you also want to support the show, it's Bourbon Shop. Nope, that's not right. It's patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. Matt, do you have a Patreon?
Not any longer.
Gotcha.
I used to have one for the whiskey, but I moved away from that because I'm just spending too much time on other things. So
too busy.
So like I said, just look up those names all over. Like I said, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok.
Yeah.
schmick
All the
schmack,
places.
All the
platitude, blah blah blah, goober, short top,
OnlyFans.
saying now almost coming soon.
Aiden English feet pics.
I ain't got no shame. I got no judgment about what you're into. So
Heck no, man.
you got the cash.
Money talks, baby.
So we normally open the show with either Flying Blind or Sips and Snacks. And this week we are doing Flying Blind, which Eric has provided to both myself and Matt.
Yes, indeed.
And so I have got this all poured up. We do not know what this is. It's got a really nice color to it, though.
Yeah.
All right, let me pour this. So Eric, this is your choice.
Yes, this is my choice. I tried to get something that I thought both of you may not have had as much to see if you had the same thoughts about it.
So let me ask you guys something really quick while we're talking about blinds. And I thought about this the other day. Have you, and I can't think of one for me, maybe like once that I came really close. Have you ever sniffed something or nose or tasted something blind where like you were like, oh, it's this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was it?
So it was during our buddy ADHD Whiskey's Matt Madness last year. And I just like automatically knew that what I was drinking was Old Forester 1910. I mean, like without a shadow of a doubt.
That's a strong one. That's a very,
it just jumped right out at me and shot it. And it was 100% correct. And I got like 5 or 6 extra points just for naming the actual whiskey, which was a nice little, it felt really nice. And like I was actually doing something right all along, but it is a power move. Yeah. That's what this episode, it's going to be called.
That's a power move.
Yeah. It's going to be called This is Power Moves with Matt.
I don't think I've ever actually like straight up blind. Like I did a thing with some friends on Instagram where we had poured ourselves like 12 blinds and we'd go through them each day. So I knew I could look at the list and see what choices I had. So I may have got one of those right just because I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure that's OWA or something like that. I don't think I've ever straight up just got one not knowing anything.
Yeah.
I've kind of guessed at it based on like clues, like Perry's blinding me. He's like, I'm like, is this a rye? Is this? And eventually got to it, but never, I don't think I've ever just straight up said, I know what this is.
Yeah, me neither. This is really nice though. Just sniffing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice.
I don't know if I can name this. It's really peanut buttery though.
So I haven't tasted it yet. I mean, it's like one of those, something you can tell. I'm better at sometimes eliminating things I know it's not.
Right.
Like I know I can tell the first thing I always say, I'm like, is it Dickel? Because that's, to me, that's
yeah, absolutely.
That's so strong. It's so distinctive at this point. And I'm like, okay, I know it's not that. The other one that I can usually pick up pretty well. I'm like, is it a high rye MGP? Because again, I've tried so many craft brands that have used that and everything. I have a pretty good sense of that. I'm like, it's not either one of those. It smells really nice, really like a deep, rich sweetness to it. Like when I first sipped, I almost wanted to say it could have been like a finish, some kind of collaboration thing, because it's got this really fruity. But I don't think it is. I'm gonna taste it.
If it is finished, I would see it maybe being a little like closer to port, just because it does kind of have that dryness towards the back of the palate.
It's very drying. It is.
But I don't like, knowing that you don't like finished products that much, Eric, I would be hesitant to say that it is.
Yeah, no, tasting it, I don't think it is. It's pretty good proof. I mean, this is my first drink of the day too, so anything. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
80 is gonna taste like. Yeah, what proof do we think it is? I mean, off of your initial, what do you think it is?
I'm gonna say,
shut up, Eric. You know what it is, so you stay quiet.
I thought I was gonna give you a hint.
Well, ask for hints.
I'm gonna say it's around 110, 115.
I'm like just north of of 100. I don't think it's in that 120-ish range. I mean, it could be a hot 90 something, but I'm thinking 1 to 110.
Hey, hot 90 somethings are rare, but
I'm all about
hot 90 something.
The old
whiskey
Gil.
tasting. Oh yeah, Whiskey tasting out of context is so
it's so funny,
sexual and stuff like
so funny to me, dude.
For those on the audio, just sniffing it, it smells good.
This smells just like a hot.
I'm gonna put a little on my tongue and just see what happens. Things like that. It's
this is a little dusty.
Is there a little dickle in it? You know what I mean? It's inherently very, very mature.
Right. Make sure that you swish it around in your mouth as well.
Mm-hmm.
This one doesn't taste like it's been opened in a while. I mean,
so this doesn't. So I'm also So you do think about the person blinding you. So I'm thinking about Eric. I don't think I'm not getting beam. I don't think it's anybody major. I'm not getting him. I don't think I'm getting a beam thing. I don't think I'm getting like a Barton. Again, that you taste in a lot of different source products and also in their own.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste like maybe a Buffalo Trace product. I don't know. I could see this maybe being like
it's kind of missing that cherry note that Buffalo Trace typically has, though. I almost want to go Four Roses, but I don't it's not quite there. But it's got some of those Four Roses characteristics, like that creaminess, a little bit of that spice bomb midway through the palate as well.
Does it feel younger? Not like 2-3 years old, but this is not like a 10-year-old.
No, I was thinking like 6 or 7 year old.
Yeah.
So
because there's a little tiny bit of I don't want to call it rough around the edges because that's a good age, but it doesn't have that medicinal. Jesus. Just dip him in the glass. Just dip him head first. Yeah. Oh my God. All right, I will let you do.
We need to explain what's going. We need to explain what's going on for a second.
Eric is playing with my Aiden English action figure. He's goofing off. He's taking away the serious tasting that we're doing over here. But I will say, you can do whatever you want. You can post whatever pictures you want. You can goof off with that. You can take it. I don't care. But only if you hollow it out and make it so you can pour whiskey in and make a shooter out of it. So you can drink whiskey out of my head. If you do that, I don't care what you do with it.
This is my new like sneaky sample that I just take with me.
That guy just really loves his Aiden English action figure. Why does he keep kissing it on the head?
why is Eric's 8-year-old drunk right now? Like, that's the wrong figure. Grab.
No. All right. So how are we doing here, Eric? Are we fairly close?
As far as age and proof, you guys are like right there. Like you're like all over it. You're all over it. You've not mentioned anybody that's the actual distillery.
Yeah.
So this isn't like sourced or anything. This is from a particular place.
This is not sourced.
Okay, that's good to know too. Yeah, it's definitely, like I said, it's not one of those made. It's not turkey either. That's something I sussed out too. It makes me. But it's been too long since I've had, especially it's not weeded. I'll tell you that much.
Definitely not. Yeah.
It's definitely not a weeded. So it's a rye bourbon. I don't know. What could it be like? One of the older Wilderness Trails?
I was kind of thinking that as well.
Like don't they have like a 6-year rye bourbon or something like that? I know Eric's a big fan of their stuff. Could be a Willet. I'm looking at his hat. Maybe he's trying to give us a clue.
Ooh.
Eric is wearing a Willet hat.
It could be a Willet.
Could be one of
Is this their own distillate?
This company, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I mean, it could be one of those like 6-year, 7-year single barrel Willets, potentially.
I would be willing to walk in. I would be willing to lock in Willet here because it does kind of have that like butter toast note too that Eric likes to talk about with Willet products. I think we might have.
I think we might have.
I think it's time. Yeah.
All right, give it to us, big guy.
Oh, there we go. There we
go.
Willet Purple Top.
Yes. All right. So this is a 8-year.
Okay.
109.6, and this is the OG mash bill. This is a Lion Share 2020 Willet Family Estate single barrel bourbon.
Nice.
And the reason I chose this is because I am as you can tell, I'm wearing the hat. I'm a big mark for Willet stuff, and I have had the same conversation with Matt and with Perry, and you two are both like in the camp of, it's good, but I'm not chasing it. It's not that it's hyped, it's overpriced and all that. So I wanted to see if I could get both of you to agree that one of my Willets was a good bottle.
No,
so,
I do think this is really good, but again, what's the price on it?
Yes, that I was just about to say.
$180.
That's
no way.
That's
no
way
way.
too much.
Not a chance.
That's way too much for this.
This was really nice, and I'm sure you're with me on the same. That's what I've always said. When their stuff was nice, and like I got a couple I got like a 6-year single barrel and a 7-year single barrel, and I like I always tell people, I'm like, I love when barrel proof is in that 100 to 115 range, where it's not like 140. Like I don't love 140 proof stuff. You know what? I don't love hazmat stuff. I like to have it full strength, full unfiltered strength, but be able to palate it and actually really like without it frying my tongue.
Yeah.
So like I love that. So they were coming out with that, and it was nice. And I was lucky enough to get them when they were first hitting the market. I got them through Binny's here, and like there wasn't really a market. I think it was like $70-$80.
Sure.
And like for these single barrels, I'll do that every time. $70-$80 for a 6 to 8 year single barrel cask strength willet of their own distillate. I'll do that all day. Maybe $100 for like an 8-9, something really nice. But man, you're talking 150 plus for something 7-8 years. I know they have this great reputation from these incredible barrels that they had for so long, and the wax tops and all that stuff. And I don't blame them for taking advantage of that. I'm like, hey, this is part of our branding and everything like that, and going kind of premium. But brass tacks, like there's so much other stuff with a comparable palate, with a comparable taste for $50, $60 out there and stuff. I
taste it,
but I couldn't justify it myself, I guess.
I mean, like this doesn't drink, I would say, any better or worse than like a Russell's single barrel. I mean, I find it to be very much within the same camp, just in terms of overall quality. Yeah. And I mean, I would easily pick up a Russell's before I shelled out that much money. But I agree with Matt. Thank you for letting us try. You're starting to look more and more. You're starting to look pissed at us the longer we go on about this.
No, because I knew that's the reason I got this pour, because I knew that would be something you both would agree on, because I know that I'm the outside guy on this one, because I am the guy that if there's a willet pick, I'm going to pay that much. That's just what I like.
You like what you like. No, that's absolutely true. That's one of the things I always hammer home.
But that 100%. Was perfect. That was exactly why I picked this, because I knew I'd talked about this with Perry before and Matt, and I wanted to see if you guys came together for that like triple threat match where like you take the one guy out and then now it's the two left. So no,
I will say too, I think that anytime that Lion's Share gets a pick, it gets way overhyped. And usually their willet picks are, I mean, like this, they're pretty good, but they are getting close to like $200, and it just becomes ridiculous. But
it's true.
It's unfortunate,
but this is just the stuff I like to share. This stuff with people, because it's just hard to get. And like you said, I like to see what people say about it. And mission accomplished. I'm walking away. You guys finish the match.
Well, I also like to find out what people have been drinking recently. So, Matt, I'm going to ask you, what have you been drinking recently?
So, honestly, I've kept it I've been going down two paths. One, because I've been kind of on, I don't want to say a full on like buying freeze, but it's just like, I'm looking, I got to do, literally, I probably will this spring, do like a spring cleaning of my closet here that I have. Because I've got 100 and something bottles here. Most of them are open, and there's got to be at least 40 of them that I had one or two pours out of. Some of them were sent as like promo bottles. Some of them were gifts. Some of them were things I took like a flyer on. I was like, oh, I heard this might be good. And I had one or two pours, and I haven't gone back. Doesn't mean it's necessarily like bad. It just means like for whatever, I got to take that as a sign for whatever reason. I'm not going back to that. And it's been 2 years or a year or whatever since I touched it. So I've been trying to freeze off from constantly picking up new bottles. So I'm like, let me go back and work through some of these I haven't touched to just kind of double check. Like, do I really not like this? Or has it just gotten away from me because it fell into the back of my closet? So I've been going through a lot of my older stuff that I've been holding on to for a while. But I do find like whenever I end up, I will burn. That's what I'm trying to find out now too, because I went through my first couple of years of just like collect everything.
Yeah,
Get the fancy
absolutely.
stuff. All right, now I'm learning about the good cheap stuff. Just give me everything. And now I'm getting to that stage of like what I was always told at the beginning. You find out what you really like.
Mhm.
And then, I'll still jump out for some special stuff now and then. So new riffs, I will burn through like a mother. Like, and we're about to go on a new riff Whiskey Mania 4, which I've been doing for 4 years now with a couple of my buddies. Based out of Cincinnati. And Eric's been on one of those picks before.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we started doing them. And so we're gonna do another one of those. Yeah, so like if I just popped. I always keep one bottle of each one, but like at my last bottle of last year's pick, and like I burnt, it's like half gone in like a week. I'm like, I just burned through those because
I understand.
They're so good. They're in my wheelhouse of my flavor profile and proof and everything. Wild Turkey 101s will go in a couple of weeks, you know what I mean?
Yes,
just because it's such a good option, and I can burn through it because I can pick another one up for $25. You know what I mean?
Eric can attest to the fact that I am pretty much the same when it comes to like having something that I just love, and it's like I can't. And by the time it gets to like a couple ounces left in the bottle, I'm like, crap, what happened? Like I gotta put this one away for a little while, or put it into like my infinity bottle or something.
Oh yeah. So more interestingly to me lately, it's less about like, oh, what have I been going through? Because it's still kind of a smorgasbord, but like new riffs, Wild Turkey products have been a staple. For me, what I've really found interesting lately is what I've been avoiding. And again, not consciously. Like every time I go to the shelf, I'm like, maybe not. I don't know. I don't feel like that today. And I've been doing it for months. Is bean products. Like I've got a ton of great Knob Creek picks. They're really good, but like every time I reach for them, I'm like, I don't feel like. Maybe it's 120 proof. I don't feel like drinking, or my Bookers. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just not feeling that profile the last several months.
Right. I mean, Booker's is in general. I mean, this is kind of tangentially related, but I just feel like Booker's, and we've talked about it on the podcast as well, has just declined in quality over the past couple of years. I mean, it's just not as good as it was in like 2018, 2019, well before that as
Kentucky
well.
Chew.
Kentucky Chew, I think, was the last batch that I really, really liked and probably bought multiple bottles of as well. But
I think Country Ham was the last one I got, and I kind of milked that one too.
Was that 2019 or 2018?
That was 19. It was like it was like the third one of 19, I think. Oh,
hey, there it is. There's that Kentucky Chew.
I was like, I had, when you said, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that one. I remember I sought this one out because I had it at a hotel bar in like Oklahoma. And I was like, oh, this is a nice one. Which one is it? And then the bartender showed me, I was like, oh, I got to see if I can find that. And I came across it in a store here in Illinois. And I was like, oh, thank God they had one. And so, yeah, I'm still, that one's about halfway gone. Yeah, that was one of the few Bookers I've actually sought out in recent years.
Yeah. Eric, anything you've been drinking?
Let's see. Well, I got our Nulu picks in that we did with Total Wine. I tried those last night, and they are all just as good as when we picked them.
This maple finish is just something special.
It is.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And I actually found out last night that the actual maple finish was suggested to Chase by Swan.
Swan.
So Swan actually, who is our, he's not really the former co-host, I guess, because he'll be hopping back on from time to time. But he was at Total Wine here in Lexington and moved up to Greenwood, Indiana. And while he was here, he suggested to Chase at Nulu that they try an experimental maple barrel finish. And I mean, we all tried it, and it just blew us the heck away. I mean,
yeah, it was a unanimous, straight up.
Wild how good it is.
So I had those, and I got into my Jack Daniel's single barrel proofs the other day because I was pairing it with a Girl Scout cookie. They don't call it, they changed the name of it, or the Samoan, it's the coconut. Samoa. Right? They changed it to something else. Right. I don't remember what it was, but it's that one. And I found one of my Jack Daniel's picks was straight up coconut, man. Like it was crazy. It was peanut butter coconut. And I don't know, like now ever since I've been trying not to drink the rest of that pick. I don't even remember which one it was. I think it was right off the shelf, but I don't know. Coconut, not much, I don't get that much stuff. And that one just popped out coconut like crazy. So yeah, I think that's about it. Just pairing Girl Scout cookies with whatever I see sitting around. So
it's that time of year for you.
It is. Support the children,
get back on the horse.
Support your cavities, support diabetes. Don't support that.
What are you doing with your cavities?
You're supporting them?
I'm making them stronger. I'm making the cavities I'm making them stronger.
Good for you.
Yeah, well, we all have to have aspirations.
Just a lot of snacking. Just a lot of snacking going on.
So we got our media samples for Barrel Bourbon Batch 31 the other day. So I've been checking that out a little bit. And we also got the Barrel Seagrass 16 sample in too. Eric, I promise you, this is nothing like the Barrel Seagrass that you had a couple weeks ago that you hated.
You didn't like the seagrass.
It was
not
instant,
like it. He didn't like it at all.
Instant like Pine Sol, like cleaner.
I haven't had it yet. I've heard just a lot of praise for it.
I think I was one of the few that was like, I just don't get it. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, this one I think you're going to find to be.
I'm excited to try it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to you trying it as well. So Matt. Hi, first of all, but I want to, of course, talk about your wrestling career, but I think that it's impossible for us to, on this bourbon podcast, not talk about your journey with whiskey and everything. And I used to ask this question very, very frequently, especially with new guests. But how did you get into bourbon?
I mean, yeah, the age old question. Honestly, so I've said this before, and it gets you every time I say it. I'm like, yep, it's absolutely true. I wanted to drink like an adult. That's where it all stemmed from.
Yeah.
I remember this is before I met my wife, or no, probably just afterward. I remember living alone, and I really got into cocktails. I was like, because I was never a party guy. Like when I first started wrestling with WWE and everything, a lot of guys would go out on the weekends or on the off nights and stuff like that, and hit the strip of bars in Tampa, Florida, where we were in developmental and everything like that. I did it a few times, man. It's just not my scene. I'm not a ground and pound party guy. So it was like, but I'm like, I enjoy a drink. So I'm like, I got into like cocktails. So I remember when I lived on my own in Orlando, when we moved everything to Orlando, I went to the Salvation Army, and they had this little like wine cabinet for like $50 that was like half broken. And I like shoved it in my backseat and took it home. And like these, hanging glasses for wine. That's very thin and narrow. It totally stood out in my unpainted, barely furnished apartment. Like just didn't make any sense to be there. But so I wanted to get like, I got cocktail stuff. Like I was like, yeah, I'm going to make myself like martinis and Manhattans and like old fashioned. I'm gonna be a classy drinker. Because I just want to drink like an adult and stuff like that. But I had no concept of drinking anything neat. That seemed insane at the time. And so yeah, so I got like vermouth. I got like garnish fruit and all this stuff. And then of course I live alone and I don't entertain much and I don't have parties. So like the vermouth went bad and like the fruit all went bad within like 2 days. And I'm like, wait, do I got to go buy more of this? I made one cocktail. I'm like, this week, what the hell? So I literally, it also came out of like, all right, well, cocktails are fun, but unless I'm a bar serving 100 of these a night, like I can't justify going and buying an entire bag of limes once vermouth goes bad, all this stuff. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, I know people drink this stuff straight, and my dad loves scotch. So I'm like, all right, let me see if I can learn to do that. And so I was like, I just need to do it out of necessity because it'll be cheaper, it'll be easier,
right,
supply wise. And I think I wasn't even thinking about what whiskey it was. I was like, I'm gonna do whiskey. My dad drinks scotch, which is whiskey. I didn't know the difference too much at the time. And I went to this ABC store and I saw Knob Creek, and I'm like, I know that, I've heard of that brand, I've seen that around. and it was single barrel and it was 120 proof. And I'm like, that seems strong. So if I can drink that, I can drink anything.
Right.
So let's do that. So I sat on my couch with a can of Coke Zero and a glass of whiskey, and I went, chased it with the Coke, back and forth, trying to hold off on the chaser as long as I could until I did that for months until I could finally just drink it neat on its own. I wasn't enjoying it, or like I kind of was, but I wasn't like tasting things. And then after that is when I was like, all right, well, let me learn a little bit more. And I, of course, Googling and online found, and that's when it all started to happen. Reddit pages, Facebook groups, found Bourboner, found things like the Bourbon Pursuit podcast and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, there's like a whole thing here. I'm like, this is like a whole niche. Like this is the way people are. This is when that was my light bulb moment where I was like, oh, this is like a thing like video games or comic books or, sci-fi, like people who are into like their niche, like there's a whole thing here for people who are into whiskey and everything. So I'm like, let me get more into this. And then from there, it just started going to liquor stores. I was on the road and trying new bottles and finding out what I liked and getting to know people. And it just totally snowballed from there.
Did you have anybody like that was around you while you were wrestling that you were also kind of like bringing in and trying to get them to enjoy whiskey with you? Or was it just kind of you like on your own little journey?
It was pretty much me, all on my own. Eventually, I don't remember when it was, but I found out our ring announcer at the time, Greg Hudson, who went by Greg Hamilton in WWE. He lives in Cincinnati, and he was a big whiskey guy. He was a big Scotch guy for a long time. And I started talking about the bourbons and stuff I was doing and everything. He's like, oh, cool, we should talk about that. And then he started getting into bourbons. And from there, that's all we would talk about, like every week at TV tapings and stuff like that. And we go to like liquor stores and stuff together, and we trade picks and things. And then he was the one I started doing the Whiskey Mania picks with. 4 years ago at this point. So he was probably occasionally got other people would like try, but then they wouldn't, I think nobody nerded out like we did.
Right.
So it was like I remember the Usos told me man, there's this whiskey bar like in my hometown. Like I got tried all these different, like 2 of these different kinds. It was really good. I was like, yeah. And like, we talked about it like for like one or 2 weeks. And then like, they never really brought it back up because I don't think they really dove back into it. Seamus too. Like he loves his Irish whiskey and stuff like that. So we've chatted about that a few times, but mainly it was me and Greg who like really got into like the whole community and the deep side of it.
Was it just kind of a natural, like once you, and I mean, you were, still kind of with the WWE as you were starting up a lot of your stuff, but when you were getting a lot of it started, was it just kind of like in the back of your mind, like I need something else once this part of my life is over, like some other kind of outlet to be creative or to have something to just, even daily just find some kind of significant interest in?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of one thing I'm at the heart of it.
I mean, you're not retired from wrestling. I want to say that much. Like I shouldn't have implied that is like in your past and nothing but your past.
Right. No, but I hear what you're saying, and you're absolutely right. So it's 2 things. It's one, I like at the heart of it, like I'm a dorky kid. I was a quiet, shy, nerdy kid. Again, I loved my video games. I loved like movies. I loved wrestling, but even when it wasn't cool to love wrestling and stuff like that. So it was very much my own little thing, and it was kind of, like I said, a shy kid kind of thing. And so I do love having my like little niches to dive into. Like when I find something, I go all in. I also have a problem where I can't just enjoy things. like I do, but I enjoy them so much.
I know what you're saying.
Literally just be I can't just be a fan. I have to do something with it. Yeah. Again, even if it's not like a quote unquote career, like I can't just like, I'm going to be the guy. I'm just going to like whiskey. No, I have to write about it, and I have to tell people about it, and I have to like nerd out about it and do things like that. That's what happened with me with wrestling. I watched it, and I fell in love with it, and I was like, well, how can I just sit here and watch this and not want to do it? So that's why I did it.
Yeah.
But that said, just like you were saying, wrestling, when you get into it, and especially in the WWE, it is so all encompassing. You're in a bubble. There is a wrestling bubble, and it's like man. And there are some guys who are like, yeah, they're on the road 4 days a week and they're wrestling every night. And then they come home. Guys like one of my buddies, Dax from FTR, formerly the Revival in WWE. Dude, he's one of those people. He will come home off the road and he will watch hours of Ricky Morton matches because it's in his blood. And don't get me wrong, I love wrestling too. But after a week on the road with it, I need to switch. I need to switch. And a lot of people are like that. It's like, I love it. And when I'm there, I am locked in. I am all into it. But man, like, yeah, when I'm home, I like having other hobbies. So it was something outside of that I could really dive into, something new, a new frontier that I was learning too. I felt like I was learning something for the first time in a while. Cause I was deep in the wrestling. Not that I knew everything in wrestling, but like I had a handle on it. And so this was a whole new thing to learning histories of distilleries, what mash bills are, how the distillation process, how does this all work? It was very, very cool.
So I interviewed Clay Risen the other night, who's an author. He writes for the New York Times, and he had a new book that just came out in December. And one of the big things about this book is that it just has like layers upon layers of information, just like the history of bourbon, the distilleries as well. It even gets down to like cooperages and, how the barrels are made and everything. And I made the point to him that like it invites people to just ask more questions about whiskey and ask more questions about bourbon. And it like every time that you learn something new about bourbon, your knowledge increases like tenfold. And like it just kind of keeps going and going and going. And there's so much to just learn more and more about the deeper that you get into it. I mean, even as far as like, just ways to increase fermentation during the distillation process, and like, how long barrels actually sit out to, get seasoned and everything. I mean, it's just like things you would never even think of. And it just, the more that like you get it, I mean, it's the same with any, topic of interest, but I mean, there's something about bourbon, it is so steeped in tradition, and there are these, aspects of it that are just constantly changing and constantly evolving. But at the same time, it's very much rooted in heritage, and just the different angles that you can go at with it.
I think what really got me too is branching off of what you're saying. And it's one of the things if anybody who's like tangentially into it, I'm like, I think you'll really fall in love with, at least what I did, is that like everything you just said, it's this crazy, there's so much involved in making a bottle of whiskey, right? That goes into that, even that $19 bottle of Jack Daniel's Black Label, you know what I mean? Old 97.
Yeah.
There's so much, from the farm that grows the damn corn, how do they do it, and what's the nature of the soil, how much that influences then what do they do with it, what kind of mashing process do they do, what kind of fermentation do they do, where in the state are they aging the barrels, what floor is it on, what wood is on the barrel, what proof are they distilling it at, what proof are they going into the barrel, all these things make a mathematical equation, right? And there's so any one of those and the product in your bottle is different, which that blows my mind, where it's like, it all seems, it's such a factory process, but at the same time, we change, the seed of corn that we use, keep everything else the same. It's going to taste a little different in a few years. You know what I mean? Jack Daniel's is going to taste a little different. So that just blows my mind. I love that idea of like endless possibilities from every little thing.
Yep.
And on that note, I'm going to get all like artistically and stuff here. Like it's, to me, it's one of the, there's a lot of industries, but it's one of the really perfect blends of science and art, and also just chance and nature.
Yeah.
Because you can have the perfect, all those steps I just said locked in, right? We know exactly where we're getting our ingredients. It's grown the same way every time, even though it's going to be different. But like just in theory, it's same farm, same style of corn. We do the same thing with it. We put it all in at the same. It's all the same, and all that can be locked in. And if the 4 winters you age it are a little extra cold or a little less cold, or you know what I mean, or like one of your warehouses, the aging, that idea, like the idea of like, you do all this perfect scientific calculation, and then you go, okay, it's in a warehouse, kind of like something's, we can work with it and you can blend different things, but it's like, we'll see what it's like in a few years. You just kind of give it up to nature.
Yeah.
And so it's the subjective culinary thing. It's this scientific, mathematical, precise process. And then it's also like 1/3 just, we'll see what nature does with it. Here we go. Hopefully, especially when you're a new distillery, hopefully it'll be good in a couple of years.
That's one of those things that I also find just endlessly fascinating about whiskey. I mean, and I think that's what, when I have to, and it's not as often anymore, but I defend the amount of bottles that I have. Right.
We've all done that. We've all had to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. But just when I have to explain that, it's not the same across the board, because there are so many little iterations and little changes and things that just, you're right. You can get everything down to a T, but I mean, if it's an extremely hot summer and more of your more of your water evaporates and it leaves behind a higher proof whiskey, then, that leads to a different product overall. And, you can have the same exact mash bill at two different distilleries, but the wood that they actually used for their barrels, the oak they used for their barrels, could be just slightly different, or it could be in a different climate, or, the water could be different as well. I mean, there's just endless possibilities with it. And I find that so fascinating and so much fun to just sit and go through different things and see who, my taste lines up with blenders as well. And like people who may not be actually making their own whiskey, and just sourcing and, going through that process as well. But yeah, I'm in that same camp of like, I love the mystery behind it once it actually goes into the barrel and what's going to come out of it.
Yeah, single barrels were what got me. I mean, I told you guys both that it was just getting that first time I got Russell's, and they were two different barrels, and it blew my mind that these could be so different and they were the same thing. And that's what put me down the path. Eric,
let me, I was just about to bring like that up. Have you ever been on a pick where I think this was on a New Riff pick for me, where like we were tasting two different, like then they ended up, I think they told us afterward, and we were like, oh, this one's like way sweeter. This one, they're like, those two barrels were next to each other in the warehouse.
Yeah.
And like, they didn't move for 4 years or whatever. Like,
yeah,
we don't rotate. Like, and I'm like, what? I'm like, they're in the same place. They just literally are next to each other. But the way it moved, the way whatever nature decided to interact with that wood versus this wood, it's a little bit different. And I'm like, my head was just like, what?
I mean, it's just crazy. It's crazy.
Like that's like the Wilderness Trail pick with the I mean, it was the same mash bill and everything. We had, was it 4 different barrels? 4 or 5,
yeah,
that we were tasting from, and there was one that Eric has since called Funky Nerds, which was it was the wildest. And yes, he was able to persuade Macaulay to let him bring some home, but it is one of the weirdest single barrels I have ever had.
Yeah, they were all the same, like age, everything. Like it was crazy. It was insane. It was insane.
Eric, I feel like I've asked a bunch of questions. Do you want to take over for a second?
Oh my God. I'll take over.
You know what I mean?
I know. Matt, so I'm going to switch to some wrestling questions.
Sure.
Just a little bit. Or kind of combine the two. Like, so you know me, I'm on social media with Instagram and all that stuff. And I feel like I see like a little bit of everything. And what do you think about fandom? Like, I feel like wrestling fans and whiskey fans and Star Wars fans and all that, they have that one group that's really like inviting, everybody's nice, and then they have the toxic fans. Like you see that too, like even being on the inside with like wrestling and all that, is that I feel like all the fandoms are just kind of the same. They're in the same, I don't know, like they just mirror each other.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, so I try to have a little bit of an understanding, but you're 100% right at the end of the day. Twitter is the best, worst example of it. I think Instagram's on there too. Just, I mean, you're behind a keyboard. People can say whatever they want. And I noticed, it happens in whiskey. It happens a lot whiskey's not too bad. Like it happens, but I feel like just the scale is much smaller compared to what I've seen. Wrestling it can be pretty bad. I'm even noticing now in video games, like the people who are like dedicated to their game, if the developer delays something 1 month, it's pandemonium. All of a sudden they're the worst creator in the world. They or at least it seems like that on your timelines. You're like, oh my God, like is Microsoft the devil all of a sudden this month because there was a 3-week delay on something? And stuff like, so like, and it can be a mixed bag. And so like, I try to be I was so inundated with it in wrestling. It comes from a place of love. It is rooted. I mean, it gets distorted, but it is rooted in this. We love something so much. And we care about it. And so when something that we don't like happens in it, a lot of people go with their gut, which maybe they shouldn't all the time. You should stop and think for a second, but they go with that, and out comes a little bit of the toxic nature of it. And so like, well, I get it. And that's where things like toxicity, like gatekeeping is a huge problem too, that I hate in any industry. That whiskey, I see that a lot with, oh, you don't know what MGP is, you never heard of that, get out of here. You don't know what a high ride, what I mean when I say high ride, man. It's like, let people in, let people learn. You're tater. That's why one of the reasons I hate the word tater is I get it. I've used it too, and I get the idea of it, but people have turned it into such like almost like a weaponized term, where it's like some new guy who's excited to buy Blanton's and he spends $120 on it, and all of a sudden he gets completely shit on online. It's like, I don't know. Everybody was talking about it. I wanted to try it. I'm like, I think there's always better ways to like educate people. If you're like, hey,
exactly.
I know, like, think about this next time you go to the store or whatever like that. So it happens in wrestling. It happens in gaming. It happens in, like you said, in sci-fi, comic books, anime, I'm sure, whatever your fandom is. I think we need more people being on that inviting side. And like I said, I get it. It comes from a place of being dedicated. You love it so much. You put so many years into it, or so much time into something. And you see somebody doing something different with it or not understanding all of it. And it's just, your gut makes you go like, screw you. And you feel protective or insulted or whatever it is. But I think, any fan, and I get it, I'm that fan too for a lot of things. Just take a second and, breathe. And you got to think about, one, new people coming to the community. We want to get more, usually whatever it is, you want more people involved in whatever you're doing. You want that because it makes the scene of whatever it is thrive if you have more people into it the way you are. But I think, especially with fandom, I think especially in a lot of these like niche things, people are very protective because, like I said, they're kind of like me. Like they felt outcasted from mainstream things, so like they latched onto this niche community. And sometimes you even have that feeling of like, when all of a sudden it becomes popular, like bourbon has blown up in the last, for example, last couple of years, people get protective, and all of a sudden it's like, well, what do you got? None of you were here when, when nobody was buying bourbon, and when I can get Pappy on the damn shelf, screw you, get away. You're all idiots. You're taters, you're marks, you're whatever. And while I get the instinct, it's like that's not going to help the industry. It's not going to help the scene. It's not going to help the community overall.
Yeah. Did it take you, when you started getting a little bit more famous with wrestling, did you try to stay away from like reading online what people were saying about you? Did you want to read that? Did you just have to learn to like take the good and forget about the bad? Or how did you deal with that?
Well, luckily people didn't really talk about me too much. So that was pretty easy. No. But I will say that I've always been very good. I never shied away from it. I read my Twitter. Some people are like, I never ever read any mentions, any comments, right? Some people just scroll through. I read it. I generally, at the very least, I kind of skim through everybody's. And I think one thing I will say thank you to my parents and stuff who just, while I was always a shy kid, may not have always been the most confident, I think I've always been good with letting things roll off my chest. So like, I've always also been able to see, I've always been very good at like seeing the landscape for what it is. Like I never had some kind of inflated ego where it was going to be bruised if someone said, "You suck, you're a jobber." I'm like, okay. I know it's the internet. I don't care. I also am aware of like where I'm like, I knew when I was on the lower part of the card, I'm like, people are like, they're either going to not talk about me or they're going to say things like that to me. So I'm like, I know that's there, whatever.
Yeah.
I know I've always been good with knowing who I am. And I think a big part of that was always grounding myself in my, and I think this should go for everybody, whatever you are, whatever your career, even if your career is in like these niche communities, like you're talking about, like you're making a career and making content for whatever it is and stuff like that, ground yourself in your real life. It's because if you're like, I do find, I'm like, I'm not trying to put too much of a button on it, but like, if you're happy with, you don't have to have like a wife and kids if that's not for you, whatever it is. If you're happy with your home life, your family, your day to day, how you live, whatever it is, then all that other stuff will be okay. Because even when it's rough, you can take solace in whatever's at home. I don't care if it's your dog at home. You know what I mean? As long as you're like, hey, like I'm happy in my home life, and I like what I have here. Then even when your career, your passion, even when that turns sour for a bit, it sucks. But it's like, all right, I have, this is my solace. This is my place.
I mean, I can speak to that because I've like Eric knows my professional life over the past like 6 months has just been tumultuous more than anything. But the fact that, we get to sit down every Friday at noon and drink bourbon and record a podcast is like, I mean, that's what keeps me going. I mean, I have a wife and kid, but like it, just in terms
who cares about that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I realized that as it came out of my mouth, I probably should have put that genie back in the bottle. But I mean, like as far as like, something that I have just an immense passion for and so much excitement for, and like, it's late nights editing videos and podcasts and a lot of scheduling, and there's not really a professional setting where you have healthcare and you have, a steady 401k or income or anything with it. It's all very self-sustained, but like, I wouldn't change it. I mean, it's just part of who I am at this point, 4.5 years into doing the show. And maybe I should probably back off this a little bit, but like the podcast is a bonus to, also being a husband and a father. I mean, like it's an extra level of like fulfillment.
Yes. And that was the other thing I was going to say too, with a lot of this stuff is, I think especially when you're getting into, again, we're talking about these things that have a fandom, that have a community around them. If you're working in those spaces, we're all people who work and kind of involved with social media and stuff. And your success sometimes does kind of rise and fall with things like social media and attention and things like that. And so when that wanes at certain times, if all your value is in like, the show or whatever made this much money or hey, got this many clicks, this many views, if it's 100% tied to that, you'll be miserable.
For sure.
But if you can, again, number one, I would say your real life, but whatever your work is or whatever your passion is, as long as you like doing the actual work of it. I think there's a lot of people who are like, I want to be I want to have a podcast, a bourbon podcast, right? Well, it's like, okay, that's great. I know you love getting people all paying attention to your bourbon opinions, but I'm like, do you like sitting down, carving out the time to record it? Can you enjoy the process of arranging the time? Can you enjoy the process of editing it? Can you and it's not, I know it's not all fun 100%, but if you're like, hey, overall, I enjoy the work of putting all this stuff together and doing it. Because here's the thing, there's going to be times when people are saying your thing sucks. Trust me, I get it all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But it's like, you know what? I know the people who do like it, and I like doing the work to put this out there.
Yep.
So if you're enjoying that part of it, the work people don't see, you know what I mean? And the attention, you're not getting attention for that. As long as you're finding a love in that part of it and putting it all together and putting it all out there, then you'll be able to roll with the wanes and the peaks and the valleys and everything like that. And you'll have much, much more happy time.
it's very much in any sense, you know, when you put yourself out there, a lesson in how to be humble and just overall humility. I mean, like, not everybody, and this is the thing that I've been harping on, I think, more and more since the beginning of the pandemic, but not everybody is wired the same way that you are, right? And not everybody's going to see things the way that you, and I know that that's just like, it should be common sense, but like, if you put an opinion out there and somebody comes back with the opposite of that, and you say, I can't believe that you would think that or that you would feel that way, you're doing yourself a disservice by not allowing the chance to have open conversation and allowing yourself to grow in some ways as well, to understand how other people think and other people feel. And I mean, yeah, nobody's going to like everything that you do 100% of the time. But if you are happy with it and you are confident in it and you put it out there, and at the end of the day, you can say, I did my best today, that's okay. I mean, and if you don't, you wake up the next day and you try harder. Like,
absolutely,
there's no other way around it. And, you know, it's probably just the older I get, the more I realize that that's how life is. But, you know, it's unfortunate that people feel the need to, you know, bash on what you do. But at the same time, if you're doing it your own way and you're loving it, then who's to stop you? You know,
100%.
If you're not hurting anybody.
Yep, absolutely.
That's how it is. But anyway, sorry, I think I took the reins there a little too hard. But
no. That's a great conversation.
Yeah, it's something that we don't talk a whole lot about either, I guess, in the bourbon community. But, you know, of course we do say, like, drink what you like and enjoy what you like, and, you know, get other people to try it as well. But I don't know. I don't really feel like there's too much, at least, shaming of people liking particular products anymore. I know that, of course, there is gatekeeping, but I mean, I feel like that's a completely different thing from, like, saying, oh, I can't believe that you even like the Antique 107. Nobody's saying that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that anybody would just downplay anything that your palate leans towards, which I think is really nice. I think that in that capacity, I mean, bourbon can be a very inclusive community. It could be very exclusive as well, but in one way or another. But I think the threshold for entry is pretty low and pretty accessible for a lot of people.
I agree with that.
Well, I'm gonna do something like play a little game with Matt here.
Ooh, go for it.
Yeah. So I gave Matt a heads up, and so he. Oh,
that's okay. I wasn't sure where you were going. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm gonna skip over snack pairings with you, because I sent Matt a bunch of snacks, and I just wanted him to enjoy them. I was like, we're not doing no pairings, or you know, we can pair snacks all day on Instagram, right? But I sent him a list of wrestlers, and I want him to pair this wrestler with what whiskey he thinks
I like this.
Either complements the wrestler, or just, you know, it's a pairing, whiskey and a wrestler. So,
right.
And I gotta say, if you haven't checked out Wrestling with Whiskey on YouTube and the straight shooting episodes, by far one of my favorite things on the internet. I guess that's a tips and bits early for you, but Matt got wrestlers that maybe don't know much about whiskey or have never even drank it. He sent them samples, and they had a conversation while they went through these samples. And just watching people that you know are wrestlers and you've enjoyed watching their work, and then seeing them either like a whiskey that you like or absolutely hate it, is one of the best things ever. Like, I swear that's one of my favorite things on YouTube. Is
it's like Hot Ones shooting, but with whiskey.
Yes, exactly.
that was the impetus for it.
Yes, so check those episodes out. They're just so good, and there's just something about, like, when you find out, like, a wrestler or an athlete or a movie star likes whiskey, that you're automatically like, I want to be their friend. You know what I mean? And like, it was cool. It's been cool becoming friends with Matt after, following him through NXT and everything. So
we'll get McConaughey on the podcast eventually.
Okay. Next in line.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's see. We're going to go classic here. Undertaker.
Okay. So yeah, you gave me a little heads up, and like, but I didn't want to like sit and like have my answers prepared.
Right.
So I looked them over. I was like, all right. And I thought about it for a minute. And so I had a few ideas for some of them, but some of them I literally haven't even thought about since you sent me the list. So Taker was one of them I had a short think on, and I'm like, all right, I think I've got a good one for this one. So Taker, mainstay, been around forever, right? With WWE, he's one of those guys who finally kind of just retired, I think officially, but not, what's official in wrestling.
Yeah.
But as close as someone like The Undertaker can, but we're talking like 30 plus years, wrestling pretty much every single year. I don't think, and stuff like that. So something classic, mainstay, quality, again, always one of the top performers as well. So I thought I wanted to, I'm like, all right, first got to find a brand. So I'm like, all right, in wrestling, especially in WWE, probably one of the longest tenured stars. So what's going to match that? Old Forester. One of the only brands that's still around today, was there through Prohibition, operating contiguously, all this stuff. So I'm like, okay, Old Forester. And top quality. But here's the kicker we got it for me, especially the last probably almost close to 10 years. We pretty much only saw him once a year.
Oh yeah.
So to me, Undertaker is like Old Forester birthday bourbon.
Okay.
It's a quality drink from been there forever with a company. It's been there forever. He's a mainstay, just like Old Forester has been, but he's that special 1 year every year WrestleMania release. You get to see something special. And it's kind of a unique thing in itself. So yeah, Old Forester birthday bourbon is Undertaker.
Okay.
I like it.
Orange Cassidy.
Okay. Oh, I didn't really think much about Orange Cassidy, but so Orange Cassidy. Oh wait, I did a little bit. Yeah. So I think Orange Cassidy is one of those people. I mean, he's kind of new. He's been wrestling for a while, but as far as the mainstream, he's on AEW now. He's a little bit more widely known now, but he's brought that kind of character-driven, kind of niche thing on the indies, and now he's doing it on national television. He's got this. For those that don't know, he has this kind of slacker character. He literally wrestles with his hands in his jean pockets. He's a slacker. I don't really care. He does this little thing where he kicks you lightly with his feet. But at the right moment, he does. He fires up. He's done dives and Hurricane Ranas with his hands in his pockets the whole time. And he keeps his sunglasses on sometimes. He's cool guy Steve. And just I don't care. I don't, whatever, dude. And he wrestles matches like that until the proper moment, it was in a bar full of 100 people who were just this is weird and cool, but was it going to work on national TV? And it has, and he's been really successful.
Right.
So for him, I could have gone with some super weird, coarse hair kind of thing where it's we're making it with smoked oats or something like that. But I wanted something. Coarse hair also went bankrupt, so I didn't really want to use that. So for me, I found the closest I could do. I think new riff. I like the idea of new riff on an old tradition. Orange Cassidy is this new riff on old school. Wrestling's been around forever, but he's gonna at this new thing. So again, New Riff is kind of a newer company, and they've come into the market into a very well-established, saturated market, and they've done very, very well. Yeah. I told you, I burn through all their releases. They also do new, very cool, interesting things. I'm looking at, they do 100% chocolate malted rye, and they're doing all these cool experimental stuff that's going to be coming out soon. So some new guy on the scene who's been very successful on a major stage. Orange Cassidy, new riff.
Nice. John Cena.
Dude, Cena is probably I think Cena's Wild Turkey 101, man. He's been there he's always been there, right?
Yeah.
He was always around. He was in your front and center all the time. I know because he's such a top star, people would be why wouldn't he be like a Pappy or something? But one, his character was always kind of everyman-ish sort of thing. And also, I think, just like Wild Turkey 101, I think for a long time, it was always there, but people were always like, "Oh, 101, like, oh, that's my color. That's a shitty, like, I shoot it back. I have bad memories of that." And, and I think with the rise of bourbon and with the rise of people have like this, at least within our community, have this appreciation. Like, hey, wow, 101 solid, good proof, well aged, quality distillery, all this stuff. So Cena's like, and then in Cena's like later part of his run, I think people finally were like, oh wait, he's actually good at wrestling. Like at the beginning, they were like, this guy's just forced down our throats. He's not that good. He's nothing more than a promo. And then I think towards the last couple of years, we're like, he's having these banger matches with like CM Punk and AJ Styles and stuff. You know, so people finally were like, okay, no, he can go. He is really, really good. So he's like Wild Turkey 101. Always there, always reliable, and people he finally getting appreciated years down the line.
Can we sidebar for a second about Cena?
Sure.
Has he been dyeing his eyebrows over the past couple of years? Because it looks like he has been.
Possibly. I don't know.
Like the first time I think I noticed it was on the Fast and Furious poster or whatever it was. Like those character posters came out, and I was like, something looks different about him here.
Are they lighter or darker?
Darker.
Okay, I'll have to look. I don't have any confirmation, unfortunately, but I should look.
I have a Cena in ring worn sweatband.
Oh shoot, one of the
that's cool.
Yeah, he threw it over towards us when he was at Rupp, and I've kept it ever since. He may have been trying to give it to my child. I took it. I don't care. It's mine now.
Hell yeah.
Just a few more here. Becky Lynch.
Oh, okay, that's right. Becky Lynch is on the list. So Becky Lynch, I mean, Irish whiskey. I mean, I know it's a cop out, but we'll go with Irish whiskey for the Irish Last Kicker. But you know, I'm still learning and getting into Irish whiskeys and stuff like that. My bad liquor memories are tied to like Jameson. So like Irish whiskey is rough, can be rough for me because that taste does bring me back to those college days and stuff. So that said, I've had a really strong appreciation for a couple of brands of Irish whiskey, and I think Irish is also is one of those brands in the next few years we're going to see even blow up even more. I really do. But one of my favorites, and one of those bottles, if you do like Irish whiskey at all, you're going to know what I'm talking about because she is awesome. So she's Irish. She's on fire. She's straight fire, as she said. She's very, very talented. I love her to death. Redbreast 12-year cask strength.
Ooh,
it's one of those. It's powerful.
Oh my gosh,
strong,
absolutely, dude.
Fire, you know what I mean? Like, but it's an Irish whiskey, and like I said, I'm still getting into it. But that was one of those ones that just like boom. It was like, oh, it's so good, and she's so damn talented. So those two just go together so well to me.
We got to see her at Monday Night Raw in 2019, I think, is when that was. When they were at Rupp. Were you there for that, Eric?
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, I was there.
We were at the same concert. We just didn't know that we were.
Yeah. I try to hit up every time everybody's in town. But two more. Adam Cole.
This one was a tough one. I was trying to think what would fit Cole. So Cole is. Yeah, I don't think I even thought about this one. So you're going to see me riffing on this one. So Cole is one of those guys. He's been around forever. Ring of Honor, independent star, picked up by the big guys, right? WWE and now AEW's really exploded between NXT and AEW. Smaller stature of a guy who's not somebody maybe nobody thought would be a main eventer kind of thing, initially, but proved that wrong multiple times over. I'm like looking over at my closet here. I'm like, what kind of brand? Somebody like small that has blown up big that nobody kind of really expected. All their matches seem to be really solid. Who was kind of who kind of came out of nowhere? You know what? I'm gonna go with. No, that doesn't make sense. But they had been around for a while, so it's not really out of nowhere. They just got their big break out of nowhere. You know what? I'm gonna go with something like a Smoke Wagon.
Okay.
Ooh.
right? Like kind of so like
That's the same colors.
Yeah.
That's the colors of his logo.
yeah,
and
right,
everything.
right, yeah. So again, Smoke Dragon's not been around forever, so like that part of it's hard to manage. But like something that is using, I mean, like they've made so much waves with their MGP stock, but that I think they were a smaller company, but that they just blew the hell up at the right time, right? And they got so much attention. And everything I've had from them, even though we all know it's from MGP and everything, it's everything is solid in their lineup, from their $30 standard edition to their uncut, unfiltered, to their awesome single barrels. The way they're blending it, the stuff that they're getting is really, really good. And so like it always delivers. And so like it kind of just blew up and has maintained that quality. So I'll go with the Smoke Wagon.
Nice. Last one, it was going to be Kenny Omega, but he's not on the show. You are. So I want to know.
Ooh.
I want you to pair yourself, your wrestling style or whatever. Aiden English, Drama King, whatever you want to say. Pair yourself with a whiskey.
So I think been around a little while. Not crazy on that. I'm not some 20-year vet. I've had a couple of like shining moments, but like I've never been like the main event guy. But I'm like one of so I think in the mainstream minds, I'm just like I'm one of those lower card guys. I was Rusev's buddy, blah blah blah. But I had heard some really nice things from both peers and like really dedicated fans. Like I'm one of those people who you really watched, and you watched a lot of my like untelevised matches because I've had a lot of really awesome stuff that I think you would appreciate me more. So I think I'm more of like inside the community appreciated, maybe not mainstream. So like while the world at large may not know the name, people who know.
Right.
So I'm gonna show Happy 23. No.
I'm so happy that was your, that was so good. That's like saying which character would you be in Star Wars and saying I'd be Luke Skywalker.
I'm gonna say I'm the
right?
fucking
Humbly,
man right
just
now.
humbly. If I have to ever so humbly put it, I'll put it. No. All right, for legit, this might sound like arrogant, but like knowing as much as I do about like just the wide, I'm gonna say something like a Four Roses single barrel.
Nice.
Because I think whenever I talk to people about whiskey, they don't know, like Four Roses is a big brand. We all know it is, like, and I think it's bigger maybe overseas, but like people here in America, they don't, Four Roses, what's that? Like I know Jim Beam, I know Jack Daniels. Maybe I've heard of something like an Old Forester or Evan Williams, obviously. But like Four Roses, they're big, they're known. So like people know my name, but like people who really know appreciate this, how good it is.
Yeah.
So like what this sounds like is that you are like the wrestler's wrestler, and Four Roses single barrel is like the bourbon drinker's bourbon.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. That's where my mind went at the very least. It also made me think that you have like a really big fandom in like Japan or something that we don't really hear much about. And like you don't really know about it until you go over there and do a match, and there's just like it's just crazy for you and everything. And people are coming, they're bringing their grandmas, they're bringing their best friend from college that they haven't talked to in years. They're like, you got to go see this guy. He's amazing. We got to go see him. Yeah. You're like, wow, this is maybe I'll just live in Japan.
Since you like the deep dive, we don't have to discuss this here, but maybe for part 2 of the conversation, you go home, you tell me which recipe of single barrel you are.
Okay.
Man.
All right. God, I haven't even had all 10.
He probably wind up being an OBSO because that's the one that they use the most in the most different like iterations of it. And you've been doing like so many different things.
Very versatile.
You are
the OESO, which is kind of like that. True. That really, really, if you know type.
Yeah.
Recipe. So who's to say?
I love that. Well, guys, I think it's a good time for us to move into the review portion of the show as well. Eric provided us. Do you know what this is, Matt? Did he tell you what this is?
He labeled it for me.
Okay.
I'm very interested. I have not had this.
So this is Old Pepper Batch WT10.
Yes.
Don't know if this actually is sourced from Wild Turkey or not, but it's a 10-year bourbon, 117.8 proof. I mean, it kind of falls within the realm of what a turkey single barrel might be,
Right.
at cast strength.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll certainly see. But this was from the Old Pepper Distillery here in Lexington, and you said this was about $100, right? Eric?
Yeah, it was $100. We went down to the distillery district the other day. Me and April always pop in and grab an old fashioned at Old Pepper, and I saw this on the shelf because it stood out because it was red. Because pretty much the only single barrels they had were their ryes, and so I immediately was like, "What is that?" So they let me have a little shot glass sample of it, so I couldn't even hardly smell anything. So this is basically the first time I'm having it too. But yeah, I asked them. All they could tell me was the owner found some barrels at an auction, liked them. They were 10 years old from Kentucky, and that's all they would tell me. So
Did he also find his grandpappy's bourbon recipe up in the attic too?
yeah. I mean, they were just trying to sell me. They were trying to get me to go on a tour, and I'm like, I come here like once a month. Like, y'all seen me before?
I'm on the wall, dude.
Oh, so yeah,
It does say don't serve this man, but I'm still on the wall. It's very like snickerdoodly, like very cinnamony.
It is very cinnamony. So is the actual batch name is WT10 on the bottle?
It's WT10 batch WT10 right on the.
I don't know if it's because you said. I mean, it reminds me of turkey a little bit.
It has that kind of like that Russell's. Like I get a lot of like when I drink Russell's, I think red. Talked with Perry about this. Like I see a lot of colors a lot of time, and it immediately reminds me of red. And the same with this, like kind of like a red hot type cherry cinnamon.
I was gonna say cherry cinnamon.
Yeah,
is it? I'm kind of with you. I see color when I smell and stuff like that. Yeah, because sometimes it'll be like red or it'll be I think purple, and then I start going grape and plum and all this stuff. Or it'll be lighter, it'll be more citrus. Or
it does lean towards like what maybe a single barrel of rare breed might be.
Oh,
it's kind of a
it does got a little bit more of maybe a kick or a little bit more there than maybe just a normal Russell's or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I just really enjoy that nose though.
Ooh.
Oh wow, the finish on that is.
Dude, yeah, that is long. It is peppery. Like, and it works. I love when I can taste.
Oh my gosh.
It travel like from the front of your palate to the back. A lot of the time it just punches one place and then dissipates. But that one actually rolls like spicy.
Oh yeah.
It's like pepper from the front to the back, all the way down your throat.
There's this like little puff of flavor too once it hits like the very end of your palate and it starts to get back into the finish as well, which is really, really interesting. And that's where it kind of like I'm starting to get more of like the cherry notes, and there's like a little bit of a creaminess that shows up in there as well. And this is a very interesting and complex, whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's one of those where there's not just one thing just hits you and you're like, oh, it's like a Snickers or, it's like a Twinkie, but this is like so much on the back end, like you said. Finish is so good. Like Matt was saying, it just kind of coats everything. And I get a lot more of that cherry cinnamon up front. Right off the bat. So maybe a little chocolate in there. I don't know. Like I feel like there's just a hint of like a dark chocolate. I like it though.
I do too. There's something slightly musty that's coming through.
Just a little
kind of a slightly dustier note that's popping up.
It's super peppery.
Yeah.
Like black pepper, baking spice.
It's really, really interesting. I don't know. Like it almost, I feel like we're all taking a lot of time with it, trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. But like, it doesn't, and I mean, it doesn't go like rye whiskey or Irish whiskey or anything. Like it definitely reads as a bourbon. but it's so unique in and of itself that like I'm struggling to go where are the actual like bourbon things about it. You know, like the caramels are a little muted, the vanillas are a little muted, the oakiness is present, but it's not really like yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just a very well-rounded is what I said well-rounded product, but it just is. It's very of itself, I would say.
Yeah. Dude, I keep going back to. I literally just said it, but like normally when something's really like again like spicy, peppery, and again spice for those one spice, not burn. I'm talking about the actual like peppery, tingly spice in there. Normally, when I get a sip of something like that, one or two in, whatever I'm used to it, and it greatly dissipates. But every time I've sipped this, it's maintained like that same wash of like it's just coating, entirely palate coating from front to back.
Yeah,
that's very, very nice.
Yeah. And it was just one of those things that, like we were saying, like I didn't even know they had it. Like, just happened to have it there on the shelf. Like, I don't know. It's good.
$100?
$100, 10 years.
I'd spend $100 on that.
I mean, that seems to be, if we're going off of like the old Fitz bottled and bond scheme,
$10 a year.
$10 a year. I don't really have any problem with that. The longer that this is sitting on my palate and the longer that the finish is kind of dissipating, it's starting to lean a little bit more like Barton or Old Forester.
Really?
Like I'm starting to pick up more banana notes throughout it. Which I wouldn't like if I wasn't paying attention to it this long, I would have completely missed it. But it is definitely present.
I still get a little bit more of the chocolate in there now, but man, I'm stuck on that cherry and cinnamon. Like those are the notes that I can't get around. Like those are just hitting me the most.
Yeah, the cinnamon spice of it all.
All right, well, let's go ahead and do our full review of this. We have a system of nose, palate, finish, and price. Each category is out of 5, and we scored up for a final score out of 20. Matt, you're the guest, so I'm going to go ahead and let you kick us off on this one. Out of 5, what would you give the nose?
Nose. Shit, I should have been thinking about that when I was nosing it. But man, it's so solid. You got to think it's not amongst the best things I've ever nosed, because I mean, if that's going to be like I'm trying to think of some of the best noses I've ever, that's a 5. I'm going to say 3.5. Really solid.
Yeah.
Like I'm just 3.5 for nose.
Eric, I'm pointing the wrong way again. Eric.
I'm probably on that too, because it's a really good nose. Like, but I can think of stuff that like I've spent a little bit more time with, but I'm not mad at it. I'll tell you that. I'll probably say a 3.5 as well. I think that's good. 4 to 5 to me is like one of the best noses, and this one it's getting there, but it's not quite there.
I'm actually just slightly lower than you guys. I'm going for a 3. While this is really enjoyable, I do feel like it's just very straight to the point, though. Like I'm not spending so much time with it that I'm going like, oh, new things are happening every time that I go back to it. And to be quite honest, I really do miss some of the more traditional bourbon notes that are there. I'm not saying that everything has to have it, but I do think that this one would at least benefit from being a little bit more traditional, I guess, just to kind of help balance out some of the other flavors that are present. I do still enjoy it, but I think that it's really hard for me to like go past about a 3. So I'm going to stick with that. Palate wise, though, I think that's where it really starts to shine, and it starts to pick up a little bit, but not by leaps and bounds. I'm going to give it a 3.5 on the palate.
I was thinking about there, because again, I always trying to make it. We're talking 5 is like some of the best things you've ever tasted. Is this even at like a 4 level? I'm going to go 3.5 again for the palate. Just because, yeah, like, I think you're right. You hit it really home for me when you said, and I think it's true of the palate too. It kind of, I'm not lingering too much on the initial taste of it all. I'm not like, oh my God, every time I'm getting something new. It's not that level yet. It's really solid. And what it has is really good. It hits quick and it hits there and you know what you're getting. It's really nice, but I'm not, like learning something new every single time.
Yeah. There's nothing on it where I'm like, oh, I've never had that before.
Yeah.
It's just like, I can pick it out, maybe there's something tucked away that like, I don't have a name for. But I think overall, it's just a pretty
above average for sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty familiar whiskey, I would say.
Yeah,
overall. Eric,
I went a 3. I mean, it was kind of like the opposite with the nose on what Perry was saying. Like I couldn't go back and get like the banana and the bark note. I was just stuck on that one note on the palate, so it didn't really evolve much for me. It's still good. It's solid, right in the middle, like just a 3. So.
Well, I think the finish for me at the very least is where things really started to pick up and just really well represent this bourbon. It's easily one of the more unique finishes I've ever had. It is extremely long lasting as well. A little bit of a Kentucky hug, not so much that, it makes you feel like you might have heartburn later on or anything. I actually really love the finish on this. I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to go, that's for sure the shining moment or part of this pour is the finish. It was going at least a 4. I don't know if I should go to 4 because I'm like, that is one thing I've been focusing on a lot more as I've been tasting is finish as opposed to like nose or palate. Because normally nose is like the biggest thing to me. And I've been focusing a lot on finishes. And I found a lot on the market is a pretty mediocre finish. Like medium at best is what I get from a lot of products that I have on, even on my shelf. Even if they're really good, it's like finish is like it's a medium-ish. It's nice, but having a really long, spicy, peppery, like tingly, evolving finish is pretty rare. So I'm gonna go 4.5 on that as well. That's the star of this pour.
Yeah, I wrote it down here. I'm agreeing with you both. 4.5. I think as soon as I tasted it, like it's almost like everything. I couldn't think about nothing but the finish. Like I was like, absolutely. This is an amazing finish. So I'm just going to echo what you guys said. 4.5.
Price is the only thing where I'm kind of like debating a little bit, but I do think that as far as like the merit of this product goes, I think it's there. I've been going first the last couple of rounds. I'll let you guys go first on the price this time.
Yeah, it's so I always try to balance what do I think something should be worth, right? Versus, from prices I've seen before.
This whole thing is subjective. I mean, it's literally just a subjective
review. It all
review.
comes back to the guy who pays $180.
No.
8-year-old Will.
No, but that said, I'm like, I also always try to be very cognizant of like, I'm like, hey, you know what I mean? We're in a different time.
Yeah.
Where like the market has changed. And so you can't ignore that. Like, so people are like, what the hell? I could get that 10-year bottle and bond freaking McKenna for $30. I'm never spending anything more than that for a 10-year. It's like, all right, well then you're never going to get one. Okay. So you have to read the room. You have to go roll with the times a little bit. It's like the people who freaked out over the $40 7-year Heaven Hill, right? When it came back 7 years. I know it sucks. It used to be $12, $13, but
that's still such a good value for what it is.
Yeah, in today's market, you have to, business wise, you're still getting a pretty damn good value for an age stated bonded, blah, blah, blah. That's not the point of this. So $100 for this 10-year cash strength single barrel, right?
It says batch. So I don't know.
Okay. Never mind then.
I thought it doesn't matter.
10-year cash strength blend is probably not a huge batch of barrels. It's all, it's from a not gigantic distillery, so their scale is like, I don't know. For me, not everybody cares about that. I take that into consideration because for a really small guy, I understand the premium.
I think they said 3 barrels. 3 barrels.
Man, I mean, $100 for a very, very, very small batch. It was really, really nice. Price, in considering probably what they could charge, I'm gonna go 4. I'm gonna go 4 out of 5. I think it's reasonable.
I'm in the same boat, the exact same boat.
I gave it a 4 as well, only because I would probably knock this up a little bit more if
you're gonna knock this bottle up. I don't think we can have you on the podcast.
Okay, I like this bottle a lot. Okay, maybe
Matt just like straight up just shamed you. Just
11 out of 10. She's 11 out of 10, baby. No, I would have knocked my score up on the price if they were a little bit more transparent. Like if they were like, hey,
that's a good point.
Yeah. If and I'm not saying that that's going to change how it tastes. It's not. I'm just saying like I feel
it is nice to know.
I feel a little different paying a little bit more for, what if this is a 10-year wild turkey product? Like I love wild turkey. So I'm like, or what if this is just some random 10-year thing we don't know? I don't know. I probably would went up even more if I would have had a little bit more info on where it came from. But other than that, 10-year barrel strength Kentucky bourbon for $100 is a great deal. I mean, I would buy this probably before Michter's 10 if I was comparing a 10-year-old thing.
100%.
All day long.
100%.
Yeah. So I think that's $150 or whatever. So
that's been the thing that I feel like we've talked about or heard the most about recently, that Michter's 10 is no longer worth the premium.
Yeah, Matt,
or that even if it ever really has been. Like it just is the most average premium bourbon on the market. It's a shame, dude. It's such a shame because I wanted to like it. And the first time I ever had it, I was over at Chad and Sarah's house, and I just gotten done filming an episode with them. And Chad was like, he's got just an insane collection of stuff. And he was like, what do you want to try? Is there anything that comes out at you? And I was like, I don't know, man, you pick for me. And he pulled out Michter's 10. And I was and this was like early in my bourbon journey too. And I tried it and I was like, I just don't think it's that, like, I don't know. Like there's something that's missing about it. And it's just, I wish that whiskey were better than it is.
If they put it it wouldn't solve it. I still think I would probably argue with myself over the value, but if I never want to be this guy, if they put it up, but if they put it up Michter's 10 cash strength,
yeah, absolutely.
I'd probably pay $120 for it, $130 for it, maybe.
Yeah.
But that said, Michter's 10 rye.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's lights out pretty freaking good.
That is always inevitably where the conversation goes.
Yeah.
The bourbon is okay, but have you had the rye? Because that's the thing that really should be the focus for everybody.
You don't see hardly any 10-year ryes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No. I think of Michter's 10-year rye, the same way that I think about Booker's rye. That Booker, I don't know if you guys have ever had Booker's rye.
I have not had the pleasure. I've heard amazing things.
I mean, it is easily my top 10 whiskey experiences.
It's on my list of what I got to try.
Must try before I die.
It is one of, I absolutely think it's one of those top 10 whiskeys you need to try before you die. Circling back though, sorry, I will also give the price of 4 on this. I like everything that it is just on the surface level. Once you actually get into it, though, I wish that it was just... See, I agree with you, Eric, that it could be a little bit more transparent as to what's actually gone into it. But I would just like to see it be a little bit more just as a product in general. I just want, or specifically rather, I just want it to feel more like a classic bourbon with all of these extra little bits and bobs about it. But all that being said, I mean, this is straight up one of the better values that you're going to get on the market. And my brain did immediately go to McKenna 10 as well. That's, been the benchmark for us for so long of what is a real solid value and, a 10-year single barrel bottle and bond. But I mean, you can't get it anymore. So you can't really use that argument. But I mean, if you're looking at, it's not cast strength, but Russell's 10-year is a very, very solid product at $35 a bottle. I mean, and if you're not willing to shell out $100 for a 10-year bourbon, there is definitely a cheaper alternative for it. But I think that in many ways you are paying for the premium of owning this bottle, of experiencing this bottle.
Yeah.
So if the whiskey was better, I would bump it up to a 5 more than likely, but I think 4 is a very solid rating for this. So I think my final score is a 15 out of 20. So
that's the same I have. Yeah. I think we all had around the same score.
Probably.
What did I say? 3.5, 3.5, 4. So I had 11, right?
Well, 15 after your price.
Oh,
score.
value. Oh, value.
Yeah.
That's 4. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
15 across the board.
I kept thinking about just palate,
Yeah.
nose, and finish. But yeah, 15.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're around Lexington and you want to stop in Pepper and pick up a bottle, I don't see any reason not to. I mean, you can even try it literally before you buy it.
They'll let you try
So
it.
I won't shame you like I shamed Eric for his. We will not shame you for buying this bottle, just for what you do with it.
But do send
gotta
Matt a
love you
screenshot
guys.
of you with a crotch shot of your newly acquired Pepper bottle.
Send me all the crotch shots you want, as long as you send a sample. I'm gonna regret saying that maybe, but I'm gonna get some good whiskey.
What sample are you talking about?
Oh, come on!
What? I'm just saying, man.
I'm not trying to have any kids over here.
You're offending our guest, Eric.
Oh, he did that before we even started. It's okay.
Well,
it's
that's
true.
fair. That's fair.
Hey,
I-
both of you knew what you were doing when you got in this with me, because
Oh, that's
this guy
true.
That's true.
took me on Barrel Picks and put me on his YouTube. This guy puts me on a podcast. Like, you guys know.
Actually, we got no one to blame but ourselves.
Yes.
Oh
That's
no,
true.
no.
100%.
I assume full responsibility for the life decisions that I've made. I do think it's time for some tips and bits though before we wrap things up. So, guys, what do you have to recommend to the listeners this week?
Yes. Matt, you go first. Do you know what tips and bits is?
No.
Tips and
What
bits.
are we
is
doing?
I guess
where-
I should have explained.
What
so,
are we doing?
So this is our recommendation section of the show. It's not it's not strictly whiskey related. I mean, usually it's like TV shows or movies or video games or whatever, something
Yeah.
you've been enjoying. But
something to watch or have while you're having your whiskey or
Yeah.
something like that.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
do you need Eric to go first though? After
No. That's fine.
that
That's
narrows
actually
it down.
great. So you're talking about the things that I'm watching. You know, this will tie into kind of some of the stuff we've been talking about as well. One thing, if you haven't been watching, which I think a lot of people have been, but I would highly recommend, and it's very enjoyable while having a sip of whiskey. John Cena's Peacemaker
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
is awesome.
It's so
It's
good,
so
dude.
weird and funny, but it's dark and kind of like tragic too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like it mixes all these like genres together and it does it well. James Gunn, who did like the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad movies, is so good at balancing
Yeah.
the humor with like real stuff and like seriousness and everything like that. And I'm like, me and my wife were both talking because we've obviously both have we're not like best friends, but we both know John. We've met John before.
Sure.
So we were both watching like the latest episode last night. And we're like, is it weird that like I feel proud of John because
No, I
we're
think you should.
He's awesome.
I'm
Dude.
just coming
I love
from
it.
wrestling, which has always been very like stigmatized and like put in
Yeah.
a bubble, and like he just like Dwayne, just like The Rock, like he's broken out of that and done very well.
I'm sorry. Just hearing you not just calling him Dwayne. Like, yeah, we actually had dinner last week. Like,
Well, he's not been really known as The Rock.
well,
On
I
its
mean,
own,
I know that's
or-
true, but it is funny to hear.
I know.
hear him
I did it
in
on
like that
purpose.
circle.
I totally did it on purpose.
I love it though. I think it's great. It's just really cool to hear like, people talk about these idols as people. I mean, that's what's really important.
The Rock I've literally like shook his hand twice. That was it. But John Cena, I've had conversations with, and I've actually spent a little bit of time with. So no, it's very cool. I like there's this kind of like personal like hell yeah, man. And because I know like he's not some asshole who was like a jerk to
Sure.
people. Like he was really nice to everyone backstage. He was such a good guy in WWE. Like I can't say enough good things about him as a worker, as a human, as a professional, and everything like that. So it's fun when you see good people doing good stuff, and like you said, the show is just awesome. So if
It's
you haven't
so
watched
good,
it,
man.
watch it.
I will say, watching this last episode, I felt like we finally saw John Cena as an actor truly succeed. I mean,
Yeah.
I have never, and aside from, you know, the highs of emotions, I have never seen him act with such, you know, depth and gravitas of emotion as he did in that episode.
What I love about it, and this, like, I don't mean to belabor the point, but what makes it such an interesting exercise is that, yeah, I 100% agree. And like, again, me and my wife both kind of felt it watching the newest one. That's hard to do given the absurdity of the situation.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. This isn't some period drama where everybody's serious and every word is rife with this is weird, wild shit going on. Like,
he's got a pet eagle, for crying out loud.
That shouldn't be like, he
His
shouldn't be
dad's
serious.
The worst person in the world.
Yeah. But they're all in costumes and there's lasers and they're like, there's an eagle hugging people and like it's all absurd. But in the right moments, you're choked up. You're really feeling this stuff. So I'm like, bravo again to the people writing it, putting it together, to John. It does hits everything so well.
Does Cena drink whiskey?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I used to hear. I never drank with him.
Old-fashioned, doesn't he?
I heard when he used to like have people travel with him on his bus, he would Jack Daniels was the bottle that was here one day, gone by the morning. And
Eric, we gotta work on getting Cena on the show now.
I don't even know if I can get Baron Corbin on the show. I mean,
hey,
we'll
shoot for the stars.
Have you seen the new Corbin whiskey, by the way? I'm like, we got to get him to drink it.
Oh yes,
it's like Corbin County or what? I literally just saw somebody post about it the other day. It's like some new brand. It's like from Corbin, Kentucky, I think. I imagine. Right. It's some small brand, but I'm like, oh, we got to do some kind of synergy there.
Right.
Some BS synergy.
But Cena, that character Peacemaker is like, when I think of Deadpool, I see Ryan Reynolds now.
Yeah.
When I think of Wolverine, I see Hugh Jackman. Nobody can ever take Peacemaker away from Cena. Like that's him. Like, I don't know. Like I've talked about it before too. Like it's a great show. So
should we address the Rancor-sized elephant in the room as well? Or
I was going to say, I feel like I want to do a deep dive on like the whole book of Boba Fett. I don't know if we have time to do that.
Well, let's do our general thoughts about it, because the season finale for Book of Boba Fett just came out.
Mm-hmm.
Have you watched it yet, Matt?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're not going to spoil anything, but I would be fun, Eric. Let's plan on doing like a bonus episode to come out maybe like next week or something, where we take our little deep dive into the series as a whole. But thoughts about the finale at the very least?
I think that was the best mix of an episode that we had. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I still hate punk rock Tatooine. Those kids need to get old speeders and they need to get normal Tatooine clothes. Put that aside.
But they were really good in this episode, though.
The actors and stuff I'm fine with, except that little spin move that guy did that was unnecessary. But I think this was a great way to bring Mando in and put Boba in, and I finally got to see Boba being a fucking badass. He's got knee rockets. He's got his jetpack. You've got every weapon you can do with Boba.
Dude. That shot of him like crossing fires, like he shoots one from his wrist and the other from his knee, and it's do you all think they could have, with a little bit of tweaking, they could have took this episode and made it episode 5, and then the last 2 episodes be the Mandalorian episodes, and it kind of leads into like. No, I don't think it would have worked. I don't think it would have worked as well.
Okay. I was thinking there's enough like going on that I'm like, oh, then he flies off and he goes and finds Grogu and all this stuff. But
I think you needed it as like, look, I am with the people. I'm like, I thought it was weird enough that you had an entire episode of the Boba Fett show that didn't have Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Not even like a cut back to like, what's he doing, getting ready for this siege, and it was like Mandalorian. It was this whole series kind of felt almost like Mandalorian Part 2.
They should just call it Star Wars. They should just call it Star Wars.
Yeah, a little bit. It was the same vibe. It was the same like music kind of thing. So like, I mean, it's all the same people. I know it's Jon Favreau and everything, but no, because I think if it only worked as like an interlude.
Yeah,
because like
I agree.
if you would have ended the first Boba Fett series with 0 Boba Fett, it would have been like, is this just a prequel to the next Mandalorian season?
Yeah,
Makes sense.
At least you have it as an interlude, and then everything we're all together for the finale at least.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it would have been so hard to like leave. I think the only way that what you are talking about would have worked is if they had left off those 2 episodes essentially, and they opened up Mandalorian season 3 with flashbacks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Like, and that's how we, but not as like the end of the book of Boba Fett, like Matt said, the first season. But I just think that this is further proof that the biggest flaw in the book of Boba Fett is the fact that it feels directionless. You know, it was despite the fact that it was a character that so many people held in such high regard, it was handled so benignly. If that's even a word, but like it was just like kind of throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. And then halfway through, they were like, we don't have time to redo any of this. Let's just put Din Djarin back in and have Luke Skywalker and Grogu show back up. Like it just, I don't know. I think that its biggest sin is that it exists, which is a sad thing to say about this series that should have been so cool and people should have just fallen in love with, but it needed just a little bit of a further push.
The
people who are the most critical of Star Wars are the people who love Star Wars.
Right.
I mean,
that comes back to what we're anybody with anything. Yeah. The people who are the most critical are the people who love it and dedicate the most attention and time to it. Yeah.
I just think if we're talking about the finale itself, though, I think that was a great wrap up because it gave you a little bit of everything. And it made me feel like a little kid because I'm pretty sure at one point when I was a child, I took my Boba Fett figure and I probably put it on a Rancor and I walked it around, I walked it around my bedroom and just blasted stuff while on a Rancor. It just made me feel like a little kid seeing him ride a Rancor. And I know that's probably a throwback to like the Christmas special where Boba Fett's on like that dinosaur thing.
Yeah.
But to me, like, it was like, we're making this for everybody that grew up watching Star Wars. Here you go. Boba Fett's on a giant monster. So
more about our thoughts to come on the Book of Boba Fett.
I could deep dive on that.
Oh, we could take a long time with it. But I if you watched my Instagram story the other day, I finally got around to watching season 3 of Stranger Things. And I started watching it in the middle of the day on Wednesday, and I watched it for long enough that my daughter needed a nap. And right before she took a nap, she stole the remote from me. And I didn't think that I had been watching long enough to get the "Are you still watching?" message to pop up from Netflix. And it popped up, and I out loud, there's nobody else around, my daughter's sleeping, and I go, oh no, I completely forgot about this. And I was on the season finale. It was the very beginning of the season finale. And I finally finished it up today. But I guess I've been told for so long that I needed to watch season 3 that it got hyped up a little bit too much for me. Because I don't think that show is ever going to be as good as its first season was. Am I kind of off base with that? But
I think they're all solid, but I think like that show, that first season, it really hit me the most because we didn't have a show like that, and like I just remember that the feeling of the first season will probably make it more special to me than the rest of the seasons. Not saying either one of them is better than the other. I think they're just solid throughout, but like I think the feeling of the show is like awesome. Like that's the feeling I get when I think of season 1. So
I haven't seen any of it, so I don't know.
Oh, well, never mind then. Never mind.
I know, that was one thing I just never jumped on for whatever reason.
It's inconsequential to you, though. Yeah, but I think that's all I really have. I keep trying to start playing Pokemon Legends Arceus, but I started it once just to make sure that like my Twitch setup was okay, And I was like, okay, I'm going to wait and I'm going to start streaming it on Twitch for real. And then I did start, and everything was operating like in my system at like 15 frames a second. I was like, I can't stream this. Like, I can't put anybody through watching this. So hopefully by the time this episode drops, I'll at least be a little bit of the ways into it. But it looks beautiful. I mean, it's just a gorgeous looking game. So I'm hoping that it lives up to my. I've now played through the intro, I think 3 times. So hopefully once I actually get into it, it'll be worth the long wait that it's been.
There you go.
All right. Well, Matt, I think that about does it for this episode. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, man. This has been awesome.
Dude, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This is a blast. I'll always make good time for good whiskey people. And when you find them, it don't feel like nothing but just friends hanging out. So I love it.
There you go. Yeah. Well, next time you're in Lexington or Lexington adjacent, let us know as well, and we'll have to sit down and have a couple drinks with you.
Hell
too.
yeah.
Yep.
So where can people find you on social media? Where are all your plugs and whatnot for people to follow up with you on?
Yeah, no, I mean, we kind of mentioned it before, but I mean, pretty much look up Wrestling with Whiskey or Drama King Matt on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok. You'll find me on all of those good old fashioned things. Yeah, literally just look up Wrestling with Whiskey or Drama King Matt on all social media and you will find me.
Eric, you want to bring us home?
I'll bring us home. I do want to say, if you're listening and you want to watch one of Matt's matches, I have to recommend you watch NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, the first one. Matt is in the tag team championship, and I'll just spoil it for you. They win. That whole card, that was one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time. Yes. You've got Balor and Owens. You've got Joe and Corbin. You've got you. Who was you?
Blake and Murphy.
Blake and Murphy. You got, is that the one with Breeze and Liger is on that? Such a great show. Just if you want to watch a good, just solid
Bailey and Sasha. I got a show.
Bailey and Sasha for the
Dynamite
the NXT Women's Championship there. It's just a great pay-per-view, and it's one of my favorite matches that you had, and I'm just going to recommend that. I should have put that in tips and bits. I don't know.
He's not just a friend; he's also a fan.
I am. It's one of those, just like I said, it's awesome when you become friends with somebody you watch and you drink whiskey with them. Like it's just the coolest. So NXT,
I mean, let me say too, that 2 things. One, I got to be honest. I growing up was not a big wrestling fan, and the first time I had ever really heard of you was when you were on the podcast, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. There's a guy in this world that, you know, my dad's a big wrestling fan, and I was like, well, we got to get him on the show sometime. And like the first time I reached out to you, you were like, dude, I would absolutely love to be on the show. I'm actually a fan. And I was like, what? that just like blew my mind the first time that we talked. But anyway, it's really cool to finally have gotten you on the show.
Hell yeah. No, it was a blast.
Yeah. So, but anyway, if you want to support the show, go to Patreon / My Bourbon Podcast. We got bills to pay. There's stuff we need support with. Just go join for as little as $1 a month. $4 or $5 extra. You can get the uncut stuff where I cuss and Perry doesn't have to edit it and he doesn't take out the stupid stuff I say. You can hear me full, uncut, barrel proof, whatever you want to say.
I got to be honest with you though, man. This week's pretty much, I mean, already straightforward.
Yeah.
I just got to listen through and make sure I'm not, burping or anything.
If you want to send us an email with a question, a comment, or you want to send some samples, put on the show, this is mybourbonshop@gmail.com. We got some merch at bourbonshop.threadless.com. If you want some Whiskey Mutant merch, it's whiskeymutant@myshopify.com. If you want to call in and leave a voicemail where we listen to you say something to us or talk about us, and we'll talk about you on the air, 859-428-8253. And then all the social media places, it's My Bourbon Pod. You can join the Facebook group. It's My Bourbon Podcast Facebook group. Follow on Instagram, Twitter. You can follow me at Whiskey Mutant. Follow Perry P. Ritter 1792. And YouTube every Thursday at 8. Perry goes live. I join him about once a month. This is My Bourbon Podcast on YouTube. So
And I even stream when I've got COVID. So
There you go.
if
You
that's
can't
not commitment to
catch
the
COVID
bit,
through a stream.
it's the safest way to hang out with your friends every Thursday night.
Damn right.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening this week. Matt, once again, thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we have got the interview that I mentioned previously with Clay Risen. We're going to be talking about his new book, Bourbon. I can't remember the full title, so we'll catch up. We'll catch it. It's called Bourbon, basically. There's a subtitle as well. But we will see you guys real soon. Until then, I'm Perry.
I'm Eric.
And I'm the drama king. Also Matt.
Ooh.
Also Matt.
And this is my Bourbon Podcast.